Alright, so last week I made a video talking about the Ricoh GR2 and why you should own one in 2021. And to kind of do a follow-up on that video, I'm going to be talking today about the Ricoh GR3. Now, I have been very fortunate to be able to shoot with this camera for the last 5 or 6 months or so now, and I kind of just want to share my thoughts on what I think about it up until this point, some of the good, some of the bad, and some things that I wish I could see in a newer Ricoh camera if they were to ever release like a Ricoh GR4. Now, before we jump in, you guys, this episode is brought to you by Squarespace. I'll talk a little bit more about them later on in this video, but for now, you guys, sit back and relax. Here are my thoughts on the Ricoh GR3. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is something that completely drives me nuts every single time I shoot this camera. They got rid of the exposure compensation button here on the right side that was on the GR2. This is a very subjective thing, I know for a fact, because a friend of mine loves not having it there. But for people who have been shooting with the GR2 longer, you guys know how amazing this exposure compensation button is to have just right here on the right side with your thumb. With the GR3, it's not a bad switch. You gotta just adjust it with this little toggle and it goes left and right. But it just feels better, in my opinion, on the GR2, having it this kind of vertical switch, this up and down type of thing. Some people love it, some people hate it. I personally fall on the side of not liking that change. Also, I should mention, this video is not going to be a review on the GR3. So if you're looking for specifications and more of the in-depth kind of testing, this is not that. This is just my experiences and what I think about this camera. And with that said, the GR3 is amazing. To kind of generalize what the GR3 is for me, it's basically a pocket ninja. That's just the only way I can describe it. It's a little bit smaller than the GR2. It has more megapixels than the GR2. It's a GR2 that has been packed into a smaller body but given a lot better features. One of those features being a LCD touchscreen. So if you want to focus on something, you can actually just touch it on the screen here to adjust it. And that is honestly game-changing, making your life easier when it comes to choosing focus points. You don't really have to kind of, do the whole focus here, focus there type of thing. You can just simply tap and it'll focus to it. Now, in terms of autofocus, the GR3 has a little bit better of an autofocus system than the GR2. It does feel a little bit faster, but I wouldn't say it is worlds faster. Let's do a quick little test here, man. This is not supposed to be a GR2 versus GR3 video, but that would be a good video. Okay, so let's compare the focusing of the two cameras. I'm gonna focus here with the GR2 first. Okay, and then we're gonna focus here with the GR3. That's it. It's quick. It's really quick. I'll admit that. Autofocus is great, you guys, but honestly, when you have something like snap focus, which is built into the GR3, you don't really need to always have perfect pinpoint autofocus. I generally set my snap focus to about 1.5 meters and I shoot around f8 to f5.6, and so I'm essentially going to be zone focusing with the camera utilizing the snap focus built in, and it's very similar to what shooting with a Leica and using the hyperfocal scale on top of the lens would be like. There are a couple of things that I do really like about this camera. First one being snap focus, second one being the highlight weighted metering. Now, the GR3 has a couple of different metering modes. The first one being just multi-segment metering. That's just going to be your most basic and average. Then you have center weighted metering, which is going to center at the very middle, which is great for, if you're taking portraits, for example, backlit portraits, that is. Then you have your standard spot metering, and finally you have something called highlight weighted metering. Now, highlight weighted metering is where it's at. I'm telling you guys right now, if you want to shoot in those nice contrasty scenes and just get completely dark shadows, you're gonna love this feature. If you like the looks of like Alex Webb or Sean Tucker, for example, guys like Craig Whitehead, some of these modern day street photographers that utilize that slide film look, you're gonna love using highlight weighted metering. Another great thing that I love about the GR3 are the film presets that are built in. So you have positive film, which is the one that pretty much everyone who shoots in color is going to use. But you also have some really cool black and white built-in presets. So it gives you a lot of flexibility for how your black and white is going to look straight from the camera, which I really like. And personally, I love using the hard monotone along with the highlight weighted metering. That's kind of been my theme when shooting with this camera if I'm not shooting color, and it's been looking really good. So I definitely love the hard monotone look from the GR3. But with that said, there are a couple of things that I personally do not like, and I know we started off with a bad one, but now I want to transition over into some of the things that I don't necessarily like about the GR3. Alright you guys, as mentioned earlier, this episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Now, in today's day and age, it's never been easier to be able to create your own website. Squarespace makes it easy to craft your own website to perfection with award-winning templates to help you get started, as well as options to make a portfolio to hold all of your work. We now live in an Instagram-centric era, so to be able to have your own website with your name on it to show your work only is a huge advantage. And if you have a camera or some type of laptop or computer, you have everything you need to create a powerful photography website today. So head over to squarespace.com/KingJabes or enter promo code KingJabes at checkout to receive 10% off your first purchase of a domain or website. Huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this episode, but now let's get back into it. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I have a black hair tie sitting around the front of this lens thing because this part comes off very easily. What is this? Basically, this is a little filter kind of ring thing that you can take off to attach some accessories, but I generally don't shoot with those on. One day I was out and about shooting in San Francisco and I came back home and my camera looked like this. There was no, front ring thing. And I realized that it was this, it fell off. It's loose. It can get loose very easily. It doesn't take a lot for this thing to just get disembodied into its kind of groove, and it can get lost easily. So I have to keep this kind of thing over it just to prevent it from slipping off, because if you do lose this, you have to buy another one either from Ricoh or on like something like Amazon, and it does get annoying because it's like a $20 piece. The second thing that I really do not like about this camera, folks, is the battery life. Okay, so one thing that I didn't mention was the GR3 has a new battery, and this newer battery for some reason gets fewer shots than the GR2. So I gotta change this battery out. It's like on that one bar kind of yellow thing. But it seems like the battery on the GR2 is a lot better than it is on the GR3, even though it's a sort of new and improved battery. The batteries don't really last that long. I'll be honest with you. On a full day of shooting, I go through around 3 to 4 batteries. And this could be problematic if maybe you forget to charge your batteries, because one battery, based off of how I shoot, and that is the camera is not always going to be on, but it's always going to be ready to shoot here in my hand. Sometimes I'll have it displayed like this. Lasts me about an hour. So I find myself having to change it out every hour or so, and it's just not that great. So compared to the GR2, I think the GR2 has a slight edge over the GR3 in terms of battery life. But if you have enough batteries, which you can find these for relatively inexpensive, like third-party batteries, at least on Amazon, you could stock up on these, take a couple with you. Not a big issue, but if you forget to charge your batteries, you're definitely screwed. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about isn't really something that I hate about it, but more of an annoyance. And that is when you shake the camera, I don't know if it's the battery or it's the lens. Actually, we could test that here. There's a little rattle that comes out of it. Like, I'm going to put this up to the mic here. What is that? Let's take out the battery to see if it's the battery. Okay, battery is out. Let's see. Okay, so it's not the battery because the battery's out. It might be, the front lens element. Well, whatever it is, it feels weird, and it's also weird to hear when you're out on the street, especially if you have the camera strapped the way I have it. I have 2 Peak Design straps coming up over here. A lot of the times while you're walking, this is what you're gonna hear. It just doesn't sound good. But overall, you guys, that is really all I have to say negatively about the GR3. I think the GR3 is a solid camera. Again, it's the street ninja in my opinion. And I love the fact that Ricoh took the time to look at some of the smaller details Like for example, they kind of took away the colored settings thing right here to make it more sleek. Everything is pretty much blacked out here, and it makes for a very nice sleek camera. On top of that, shooting experience with this guy is very fun, and it's a solid camera to get started with street photography with, or just to have as, you know, kind of a pocket fun camera. So would I recommend the GR3? Absolutely. But a couple of things that I do want to talk about before we, you know, head out here is some of the things that I wish I could see in the GR4 if it is ever going to come out. One of those being maybe a different lens. The GR2 and the GR3 both share the same 28mm lens, maybe a different focal length, something like 24, I don't know, maybe 35mm, who knows. Something that is a little bit different, I think that would be cool as well to see in the next iteration. Also, possibly bringing back the on-camera flash. It could be a good thing for some people. I personally love having the on-camera flash on my GR2, but on the GR3, because there's no on-camera flash, I do have to use an external flash, and it's not a huge thing, but it's always just more convenient to have one on the camera itself. Also, Ricoh, bring back my little switch right here, the up and down switch on the right side. I love that thing, and there's a lot of times when I'm shooting with this now where I'll try to adjust my exposure compensation right here and nothing happens. It's because there's no damn button there. But other than that, you guys, that's the Ricoh GR3 based off of my experiences, and I've only really been shooting with it for about 6 months now, so I'm sure I'm gonna have a more formulated kind of feel for the camera a little bit later down. And so if you guys want to see a full review, comment down below. But for now, I want to turn the mic over to you guys and ask you if you have any experience shooting the GR3, tips and tricks for me at least that I could possibly use to get more out of my camera. And also if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, leave them in the comment section down below. So thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one. As always, Minolta Gang.